Newry in County Down, they're pushing for it to become a so-called city of sanctuary. If you're not sure what that is, you're about to find out. There's a protest organised for this Saturday coming in the town centre to oppose this move from the local council to make Newry a city of sanctuary. And to discuss this with me this morning, I'm happy to be joined by Melissa Ciummei. Melissa, how are you doing?
Good, I'm great.
Good, I'm glad to hear it. Well, listen, not a really pleasant topic to discuss here, especially whenever it's really on your own doorstep. This is your neck of the woods in particular, but whether or not you're from Newry or north or south of Ireland, there's a lot of people across the UK and Ireland are going to understand what this may mean. They're going to have experienced it themselves. Recently, or back in June, the news first came out that the council in your area are committing towards becoming a council of sanctuary and making Newry a city of sanctuary. So it's called the Newry, Mourne and Down District Council. Their Active and Healthy Communities Committee, that sounds very nice, have approved a proposal on the 16th of June to join the City of Sanctuary Network. This proposal was broadly welcomed, although a Rowley councillor, I think a DUP councillor, raised concerns that the council's welcome status for refugees could create a serious situation if it encourages illegal immigrants. So I want to talk about two of those little phrases there with you. Number one, city of sanctuary, and number two, creating a serious situation. Number one, what is this city of sanctuary that they're talking about? It sounds very grandiose.
Well, the City of Sanctuary Network, it was in the UK. It started in 2005, and it was kind of a nothing burger for quite a long time. So it was a grassroots for promotion of refugee and asylum seeker status. And it moved out gradually throughout cities in the UK. It's also in the south of Ireland. But surprisingly, around the time of the lockdowns, this bloomed from what was kind of the idea of a moral stance into a governance stance under streams of sanctuary. So it's not so much even cities of sanctuary, it's now streams. Streams being your councils, your schools, your universities, your libraries, your gardens, even down to maternity units. So these now institutions and platforms are becoming advocacy platforms when they should be completely neutral. Now, the problem behind that is that the council have to sign up and commit to the City of Sanctuary ethos, which means that they become answerable to the City of Sanctuary network, which means that they're now answerable to an NGO, and they have to adopt from the national NGO framework their policies. So it's a way for NGOs to infiltrate through councils, through boroughs, through schools. And what they do, you can have a look at it and you say, you can go and look it up. How they set it out is learn, embed, share. So they have to learn the principles of the City of Sanctuary Network. Then they have to embed them. Now, embed doesn't sound like welcome. Embed to me sounds like institutionalized. Now, if you think of that in school, and then share, so push it out further. So this is an infiltration of an NGO. And if you look at behind who the funders are, it's the Esme Fairbairn, it's the Paul Hamlin, Lloyds, all of the ones that pushed all the LGBT stuff are now pushing all the refugee stuff. So do we believe that they really care about these people and are virtuous, or do we think that they're trying, it's like a soft corporate takeover where under this they can start having influence within councils? And that's direct to the Soros idea. He started infiltrating the local media, local judiciary, and local councils to gain control. So that's what we're seeing playing out here. It's not just some innocent virtue nod. It's our councillors now become answerable to the City of Sanctuary and sanctuary activists. That's not their job. They're supposed to be impartial and answerable to the people who elected them to represent them. So not as innocent as it seems.
Whenever you're talking there about NGOs as well, non-governmental organisations, These shady bodies are something that many of the public aren't even aware. They don't even know they exist. They don't know how many of them there are, let alone the massive amounts of funding that they get, and the fact that they have their own agendas to push. So whenever this story did come out, for example, about Newry, obviously people are focusing in on the council itself, and you get your representatives there from Sinn Féin, from the SDLP, from the DUP, from the TUV, all these political parties here, but they don't understand that there's something behind the scenes really pulling the strings in this one, and as you've mentioned, to do with NGOs and their agendas. Just following on in this article, the sanctuary status for Newry would see the local authority join a network of communities and organisations. So again, that's very fluffy. What communities are they talking about, and what organisations are they talking about to become places of safety and inclusion for refugees? And there you have the typical buzzwords being dropped in there, the DEI buzzwords being dropped in there, and asylum seekers and other vulnerable migrants. So again, what about definitions from this? What do they mean by other communities? What do they mean by other organizations? What's a vulnerable migrant if it's not an asylum, if they're not an asylum seeker or a refugee? The word salad in this one, the word salad is strong with this one.
Well, what they plan to do within it, this network, the purpose of this network is to push in the tentacles and influence council. And then under collective representation, that's their words, to lobby government. So now our councillors won't be lobbying on our behalf. They're lobbying on behalf of this City of Sanctuary NGO. So I don't know why we need any of this. In Northern Ireland, we've had say between 200 to 300 immigrants over this past 2 decades. There hasn't been any issue. Culturally very similar to us. They're here to work. They're here to give, not to take. We haven't needed any of this. So why do we need it now? Well, for me, it's creating this idea that we're the problem that we need reprogrammed, re-educated. And I think local people should be more insulted by this than they need to be. Why does a library need to be singled out as, and there is one in Belfast, that's the only one that I'm aware of. Why would it need to be singled out as an area of sanctuary? It's an impartial place for all. But there's the psychological warfare element of it that creates this idea that we're the problem, while an NGO gets to lobby our councillors and get our councillors almost then in the pocket, because they have direct access to our councillors. They've no business working with this NGO. Our councillors are to represent us.
And you mentioned virtue signaling as well, and there's no shortage of that anywhere you turn these days. People supporting it seems to be everybody except the people that are actually on their own doorstep. So, of course, this is going to look good on the surface of things for representatives in the council from various political parties. We want to do our bit. We want to be welcoming. We want to be open. We want to be inclusive. It would be hard. There would be a stigma attached to that, which we're finding weaponized. That, well, if you oppose that somehow, you're inhumane, or you've got no tolerance, or the old nuggets rolled out. Oh, well, what about all the Irish that went to England and that went to America? What would have happened if they were all turned away? They went there to work. They went there to build. They weren't going there for handouts, and they weren't skipping across multiple other countries before they got there. If you turn left at Donegal, you have to cross the Atlantic Ocean and you hit the USA. If you turn right, you jump across the Irish Sea and you hit England or wherever it is. There wasn't an Irish community moved over to China or down to Saudi Arabia or into Romania back in the day. They went to wherever the next available place was.
Well, yeah, and when we went, I've lived in Australia. I had to get a visa, and I offer something. I've lived in America. I had to get a visa for that. So it's the unvetted aspect of it. And when you bring in people that are culturally different, the idea is that we need to be reprogrammed. But they're being taught, so they get £850 to teach them English. But are they teaching them about our laws? Because we've certainly seen that, I think it was in Wales, that they didn't realise that sexual assault on a minor was illegal. So are we teaching them our laws? Are we teaching them our culture? Are we teaching them our values? That is being taught. And that part isn't being addressed. And in terms of being welcoming, We have been very welcoming for the past 2 decades.
Yeah.
But it's the idea that we're not welcoming to refugees. No, 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 no. We're not welcoming to the likes of Serco, to Mears, to Clearwater, to Lloyd's, buying up all our properties and under highly profitable strategy that they have here, where then it becomes that our rents are unaffordable. Our children aren't no longer able to buy a house in the area that they were born, or even outside the area that they were born. So we're not welcoming NGOs, and we're not welcoming the Serco, Clearwater, and Mere. We are welcoming to people who are willing to come here and respect our culture and offer something to our society. If I go to Dubai, there's certain things that I have to respect about the culture there. But this is the issue of it's to antagonize. Some of the people that they're bringing in are to antagonize. But that's the issue with immigration that people have. It's not that we are racist and not welcoming. It's common sense to ask questions about like the policy. If we already, like in Northern Ireland, a third of the population in Northern Ireland are on waiting lists for NHS. You have, according to the Simon community, about 80,000 people plus homeless. We have problems within schooling to the degree now that almost a third of children are leaving primary school without being proficient in maths and English. We have massive problems here. So what is the point in bringing in further people to collapse the system? That's the Clard Piven strategy. That collapses it for everybody. And then we fail everybody. So when we can get our people into accommodation, then absolutely extend the hand and offer it to others. But it's not compassion to ignore your own. Yeah. And I think that came up when they were bringing in, like, nobody wants what's happening in Palestine. It happens all over the world. We live in this disgusting world. But when it was coming up about them being brought in here, people started to get a little bit uncomfortable because they were waiting 8 years on waiting lists. And it was that realization that the NHS isn't fit for capacity here. And it's been completely eroded, but it gives them this peg to hang it on. So people really need to direct their anger where it belongs. It's not refugees. It's your government that are trying to blame for their own failings. You can't blame refugees for coming here. Like, this is the thing. We went to Australia for a chance at a better way of life. We went to America, New Zealand, Canada, Germany, all over the world. Yes, we did. But we went there and we had to get permission to be there via visa, and we work when we get there. Nobody has a problem with that as long as there is the infrastructure to support it.
Yeah, that's the key. It's the infrastructure. And I've said this many times in many of the videos that I've made about this subject as well. If I was sitting in a far country and I was looking around me thinking, if I could just make it to Europe, if I could just make it to the UK, if I could just make it to Ireland somewhere, I know they'll take me in. I know I can claim I'm an asylum seeker, whether I am or not. I know I'll get some benefits there, the chance of a house, free education, free healthcare. I would be making my way over here as well. You're right. And, you've seen the governments are almost enticing people to come here when they see how lax the laws are concerning border control and the amount of freebies that they're handed out when they actually get here. And also, you made the point about infrastructure. That's the key one as well. The health service, you talked about waiting lists there. Look at GP services at the minute. Try and get an appointment with a GP. Try and get your kid into a school place that's close by to home. The strain on infrastructure is wild. And you have landlords now as well. They're not just buying up new properties, but there are, for example, hotel owners are being approached now with lucrative contracts to say, okay, if you close down, we'll supply you, we'll give you a contract for X amount of years, we'll repair any damage, you get a guaranteed income, you just sit back, we'll even put staff in there. They're trying to entice hotel owners with that successfully in many, many cases. But that then hammers the community too, because that could result in a loss of jobs in that one particular establishment, and then it has a knock-on effect in the community. And you know it yourself, Northern Ireland's not exactly a wide, sprawling metropolis of a place to live in, and any sort of, how would you say, adjustments to the economics of a local area can have devastating impact far and wide.
Well, yes, because again, it's that soft corporate takeover, because when you apply Section 21 and Section 24, it left a lot of people bought properties. It's not that they're slum landlords. They bought properties as their investment for their pension. Instead of buying into a pension, they had something tangible in a property. And in the small communities, that's who you're renting the houses from. But what happened is with Section 21, Section 24, small landlords were exiting the market. And there was a time there that you could not get any property to rent. So who was buying up those properties? So you have these bigger corporations buying up the properties, and then they get to dictate the rent. So you do need landlords. People think that, that it's really negative for people to be a landlord, but not everybody wants to own a home. There's a lot of responsibilities with owning a home, or it can be transitional. So do we want it to be local people that own those homes that can be accountable to you? Or do we want it to be the mayors coming in? Because I know that they're buying a lot of properties around the Lisburn and Castlereagh area. I'd expect that to extend out. Doesn't seem here that they're going to be doing it so much in hotels. It seems here they're moving into HMOs, and you can certainly go on look at the amount of HMOs, quite a few in Newry, particularly around the Kilmurray Street area, quite a few in Downpatrick. Now, HMOs are necessary in some areas of Belfast because of student accommodation, but in these areas, it's not for student accommodation. So we see the direction that this is going, and with the corporate takeover of our properties.
And once they go into the hands of those landlords and they get those juicy contracts as well, it's going to be damn near impossible to reverse that, that they'll become available back onto the open market for local communities. But let's go back to this business of Newry and the opposition that is planned for this the coming weekend. Although having said that, the entire council, you could argue, are completely complicit in this. Rowley Councillor Jonathan Jackson said the DUP does support an approach to allow those fleeing war or persecution to find refuge in the UK. We fully support that, and obviously it has to be done legally. So he's saying, okay, we'll support this as long as it's done legally. We can't be seen to be opposing that one. Just one concern would be to make sure that the Charter does not encourage illegal immigrants to come here. We are just conscious of the situation, trying to avoid serious problems this can cause in our local communities. So again, there's an argument, we need to close the door on everybody. Everybody needs to be kept out. There is an argument there, I suppose we've sort of made it, that if our own people aren't getting the healthcare that they need, if our own people can't get access to social housing or renting privately, the private rental market's crazy here at the minute. There's so few decent properties available, and when they do come on the market, they're snapped up really fast. Getting a mortgage as well, the amount of income that you have to have now to secure maybe your first time house or moving house and whatnot, the squeeze is unreal. So this whole mentality of, okay, we can do this as long as it's done legally. Even if it's done legally, if you and I are living in a village and there's 5 houses in that village, okay, and there's 2 of them become available, and there's 2 young families there from the area that it would be nice to see them going in, it would be irresponsible to say, well, we'll accept 10 other families into this area legally, above board. They're coming to work and pay their way. There's still nowhere to put them. Our infrastructure here is crumbling, and our government is shambolic, and that's putting it very, very kindly at the moment. I just don't believe we're in the position, if it's essential and people are coming in to do jobs that, other people literally can't fill, which is questionable as well. I mean, it's just, you need to fix the root cause of the problem here, which is their appalling government and the complete disaster that is the healthcare, the education system, and arguably policing and justice.
We have to ask, why the government bringing them in? Do you think that they actually care about these people? They do not. They're bringing them in because the people that they're bringing in are willing to accept a lower standard of living.
Mm-hmm.
Inflation is set to increase, but inflation has to stop somewhere. So if wages inflate, that sends it right back up again. So then the prices can continue and the inflation can continue. So it has to take the hit somewhere. They've decided that it's going to take the hit with wages. So they want to suppress wages. Wages right now are the equivalent of what they were in 2007. They want to keep them suppressed. So if you know that people are going to be squeezed tighter, then they're going to go out and demand more wages. But if you bring in people to replace them, then these people are being used because they're willing to accept a lower standard of living. And the Assembly document has made it clear that from 2035, the increase in population in Northern Ireland will be from immigration. Now, it's the same as the UN replacement migration document, where it's saying that we have an aging demographic and we need to bring in people to filter it out. So if you think that your pension, so you're about to cash out your pension, it's a Ponzi scheme, there's not enough people paying in. But if we know that we have an aging demographic, when do you most need healthcare? The last 10 to 15 years of your life. And healthcare, it's not a great time to be sick right now.
No.
The waiting list, the urgent, the red flag waiting list, I think for breast is like 42 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not looking after our old people. We're kind of casting them aside. We're casting our young people aside, and we're going, well, immigration is the solution to this crisis.
Mm-hmm.
I don't agree with that. I don't think that that's compassionate at all. I think it's using immigration and it's lacks any compassion to throw our old people aside. Or, well, it's not even old, but you need more healthcare as you get older. We're just turning, and they're not going to have health. There is no healthcare right now. I haven't seen, it's nearly impossible to see a doctor. You're giving your sensitive information to a receptionist, and they get a lot of problems. They do great jobs, but you cannot get to say that is the gatekeeper to your health. So how many things, this has been going on for 5 years now. Meanwhile, they want to throw compassion at the abstract stranger and put stickers of City of Sanctuary as if they care. These councils, they do not care. They do not care about the constituents. They haven't answered. There has been multiple questions, multiple emails sent to them. They were asked to come to a public event and answer why they said yes. The only people that can answer is the DUP. And the reason that the DUP have told us that they've said no is that there wasn't enough information. So until they got clarity on what it meant, they weren't going to vote. So how can all of the others, particularly Sinn Féin, SDLP, Alliance, how can they be voting if the DUP don't understand full clarity? How do they? And that's why they aren't speaking to us. They are voting on things that they have no idea what it is. They're rubber stamping. That's not what they're paid to do. And they don't want to be exposed for it. But they are being exposed for it because not one of them has answered us. On the Saturday protest, there is, they've all been invited to speak. So we'll see who shows up, who can show up and answer for themselves. I mean, if I agreed to something, you could get me on your show and I could tell you exactly why I voted yes or no. Should we not expect that from councillors? Why are they completely stonewalling and not answering the people that they claim to represent, that they're paid to represent?
Yeah, paid well. You know, our politicians have been riding on the pig's back for a very, very long time in terms of the amount that they get paid for not even showing up for years, in some cases, for their jobs. Yes, that's true. If you're living outside Northern Ireland, you maybe don't know what I'm talking about. For anybody that does live here, you'll know exactly what I mean. But let's move towards this, a pushback on this one, okay? There has been at least one local protest so far against this. Newry says no. There was an attempt made, and you can keep me right on the details in this one. There was an attempt made recently to get a public venue to try and hold a public forum about this one, to invite the local representatives to come forward, being paid local representatives to speak and answer questions from the public about something that's going to massively impact them. That was torpedoed, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct? The venue, at least, you didn't secure that.
We did secure the venue. We paid the deposit. There was no issues with the venue. We contacted all the councillors, asked them would they come along. I had a presentation that I was going to do on what City of Sanctuary meant if they didn't show up. But the idea was for them to discuss it with the public, and I was going to ask questions about my analysis of it. But rather than they never replied, the reason the public meeting was called is that they refused any communication, zero dialogue. So they called up the venue, Bellini's, and I was involved in that conversation where Bellini's told us that it was councillors that phoned up and labelled us anti-LGBT, anti-immigration, and far right. So people that have had zero dialogue with us were able to make the assumption to put these labels on us in order to get it taken down. Bellini's then sent out, we got rumblings about it. I had a conversation with Bellini's and I says, listen, I have absolutely nothing to hide. I will show you the full presentation. It's nothing got to do with LGBT. Nothing got to do with anti-anything. It's got to do with, do we have the infrastructure and what are the implications of us joining this network? They emailed saying that they had essential maintenance. So,
asbestos removal team was going in that morning.
Yes.
It's so sad. I mean, like you try and do the right thing. You get a public venue, you invite all the people concerned. There's no exclusion on your part. Everyone's welcome to attend in the community. Every councillor's welcome to attend from every party. You'll stand up there with a presentation that's got nothing to do with being an extremist or anti this or anti that or anti the other. You're just putting your points forward. But yet we saw cancellation, and this is the tragedy too. We're seeing a lot of cancel culture going on. There was a festival that was due to take place in Leitrim a few weeks ago, and there was a big pushback against that. They had apparently 600 signatories from the champions of free speech like Christy Moore and Kneecap. You know, the hypocrisy of these people is off the charts. They had to cancel the venue. They moved it to Castle Bar. Phenomenally successful. It was effectively just a shindig. People were talking, they were having fellowship, good crack, debate, the food, the music. It was just a fantastic event. But yet that got massive pushback from the left and from certain elements of society because they deemed it was dangerous and you shouldn't be associating yourself with people like that. Like, what's the big fear? What's the big fear about coming and listening to you talking in a hotel or a venue in Newry about the possible drawbacks to this, or not possible, definite drawbacks to this, but at least giving you a chance to speak your mind? Like, what's so dangerous about that?
Because it's the truth, and they don't want people asking questions, and they certainly don't want people digging for the truth. If I'm wrong in anything, they should be able to confront me and say, that's not true, and this is why that's not true. But everything that I have, I've brought the receipts for. I have scoured the City of Sanctuary network site. It does say collective representation. It does say that they would be in contact with councillors. All of what I say, I can have receipts to back it up. They don't. And I think part of it is that they don't know, but it's either I think they're being told to stay silent. The idea right now, I think in Newry, is that they think that keep the head down, let it fly over, and we'll progress with this. I can assure you that the Newry people are not going to stand for this. The problem right now is that they have to push it through Newry. This is why it's so important to the whole of Northern Ireland. I can't find any evidence of it being brought. Derry is down as a place of sanctuary, but I haven't any evidence of the council signing anything. So it's, I presume, then a place of sanctuary. Belfast signed up in April of 2022. Then they moved into Ardsborough and they were angling for Bangor. That was stopped by one DUP vote. And the DUP had to actually vote to keep that information all out in the public domain. So they've had 2 successes and a failure. They need to win. So it would be smart to choose Newry, Mourne and Down because it's Sinn Féin majority. The DUP are very much in the minority here. So you have Sinn Féin, SDLP, and Alliance, they're all going to vote. So it was a shoe-in, absolutely no problem, until the people started to realize about it. So they're going to have to stand directly against their own people.
Mm-hmm.
And if they do, so if they've had 2 successes, a failure, another failure means that they can't put their tentacles any further into Northern Ireland. But if they succeed here, they will circle back for Bangor. They will go for all 11 councils until Northern Ireland becomes a province of sanctuary. So we're not going to allow that to happen. We have to get this stopped in Newry. This isn't an issue for Newry, Mourne and Down. This is an issue for Northern Ireland, because if we don't let's stop it here, if we don't draw the line here, then it's going to come for every other council, every other.
And the next one down the road, I suppose you would say, geographically from Newry will be Lisburn. And if it can secure Lisburn, which is effectively only 8 or 9 miles outside of Belfast anyway, if you could twin those two together, it would almost form like a mega city of sanctuary, that belt between Lisburn and Sprucefield and all the way down into Belfast city centre. But there's opposition against this. They didn't allow you to, or the kibosh the meeting. And just before I move on about the protest, you said a very good point there too. Is I asked you, what are they afraid of, and you said the truth. And you were going to stand there, and you would have taken any questions, I'm pretty sure of it, from anybody about anything, and you would have done your best to answer them. Okay, honestly, backed up with factual information. The truth can withhold scrutiny. Okay, it can be questioned all day long. And if you're telling the truth, you can back it up with facts and evidence. You can back it up, but lies cannot. Lies cannot withhold any scrutiny or any dissection of, detail whatsoever. And that's why I believe that they're running scared, because they know that what you're saying is true and what people are concerned about is absolutely bang on. But what they're pushing forward as being a good thing cannot withhold any scrutiny or cannot withhold any dissection. And I think that's why you've got them on the back foot. So going forward to Saturday, okay, and let's just give people some information on this one. There is a public rally again. Anyone is welcome to attend this Saturday, coming Saturday, the 6th of September, Marcus Square in Newry at 2 p.m. Feet on the streets, our streets, all councillors invited to speak on why they said yes. Who will show up to answer the decision made on your behalf? Well, I'm not going to try and be a prophet of doom or a Debbie Downer here, but I would say it'd be highly unlikely you'll get Sinn Féin or the SDLP or the Alliance to come out there and face the crowd and put their case forward. However, you've done the right thing, haven't you? You've made it public and you've invited them to come. What else can you do?
That's it. It was the same as the meeting. The meeting was public. So the people that were coming to the meeting was public. There was no ticketed. It was who showed up. Everyone was invited, same as this. So this has to beg the question. If there is a huge public meeting in Newry and not one of the people who are paid to represent the people standing there show up to answer for themselves, then you got to ask yourself, who do these people represent? Because if they don't represent us, they represent somebody else. We need answers about who do you represent. This is not a time. Councillors are not supposed to be standing for party politics. They're not supposed to represent the party. They're supposed to represent the people and take the issues of the people to the party. But that's not. We're under complete top-down control. And my opinion is always, I don't blame refugees. I don't blame the councillors. You get the government you deserve. So it's up to us. These people, like you said, have had a free ride. Nobody even knows who they are. So we need to make people aware. This is your local councillor. You should be able to see them in Tesco's and know who they are. They're paid to do a job. So if you're paid to do a job, do your job.
Yeah, I've seen instances at other protests or rallies that have been at different times and in different places. The main one, the biggest one that I've seen this year was in Dublin at the end of April, okay, where there was a march from the Garden of Remembrance all the way down O'Connell Street. There must have been between 50 and 100,000 at least there, okay? It was completely peaceful. There was no trouble. Everyone was welcome to attend. The counter-protest at the other side of O'Connell Street on the steps of the GPO was, let's just say, very sparsely attended by a bunch of lefties that were backed by People Before Profit and Sinn Féin, for example. So I suppose you would say the only political weigh-in on that massive day, there was no one there to listen to the so-called far right, the men, women and children, the grandparents and the babies in the prams that were marching peacefully, in their tens of thousands, but they backed and had banners flying for the counter protest at the other side of the road, which was a horrific optic altogether. So I suppose, as you could say, time will tell. We could be proven wrong in this one, but if I was a betting man, I wouldn't be putting the house on Sinn Féin to come up and take questioning on Saturday afternoon. But you never know.
They can't. They absolutely can't. They cannot take any scrutiny on this because they would have to tell the truth, and they can't tell the truth. They can't tell the truth that they're going out to an NGO. I don't know why they're doing it. Tends to be financial, but when people realize that they have been sold out, and even with the counter protesters, there's already groups saying that there's a counter protest in Newry. It's laughable because if you go in and look, they don't actually say where it is, so it's just wherever we are. I'm not bothered by it. It's very important that we don't get any civil unrest. We don't want any of that at all. So we will be getting ahead of that, because if somebody comes and they're trying to cause problems, best thing to do, form a ring around them, get out your phone, record them, let them at it, because they're not one of us. They're not there for the people. And the counter protesters, we've seen it in Belfast. It's all NIPSA and Unite and their banners and all of their flags. Well, it's time for people to realize that they're expressing who their allegiance is to. Their allegiance is to the corporation, to themselves, to their own pay packet. The people that were there in Dublin, the people that'll be in Newry, their allegiance is to their country, to their people, to the next generation, to their children. So that's the difference. We're there for heart. We're not being bussed in and paid double time to be there.
No, that's for sure. There's not a lot of money to be made in right-wing protesting these days. That's for fact. If you want to make some coin, get yourself part of a union, get yourself into People Before Profit, join Sinn Féin. There might be a wee brown envelope in it there for you somewhere, allegedly, etc., etc. So that's coming up this Saturday. I just wanted to talk to you about the background to what's happening in Newry, the efforts that you've made to bring this to the public in a public venue. That was effectively torpedoed. So now back onto the streets come this Saturday at 2 p.m. Marcus Square. So big thanks to you this morning, Melissa. Really appreciate you taking time out of your day to come on and talk about that. We might get a follow-up done to this as this story progresses, which undoubtedly it will over the coming weeks and months. So for now, I'm Rick Munn. That's Melissa Ciummei. This is No Risk, No Reward Media, and I am over and out.